Today is Friday, June the 5th, the 5th, the 6th. What day is it? Who even knows? It's June 5th. We are almost at the end of another week of these OneSoccer Player Pundit Hangouts. And joining us today for the second time, the first player to make a double dip on the show. It's been 45 days since we've had the chance to speak to him. He's a Canadian men's international, a former San Francisco Delta, and a CPL champion. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the program, Mr. Kyle Bekker. Kyle, how are you doing?
Pretty good, thanks. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Joining us as well, as always, Kurt Larson and Oliver Platt. Ollie, Friday, big plans for the weekend. What's on tap for you?
Nothing. I'm probably going to go for a couple of walks again. I don't know. But yeah, looking forward to speaking to Kyle again. I was looking back at the last episode we did with him earlier today in our meeting and made the observation that we all looked significantly younger in the video than we do now. So don't know what that says, but yeah.
Less disheveled, hair was looking a little bit better. We talked about Tiger King. No Tiger King talk today. Yeah. Kurt, how are you doing?
I'm glad you mentioned it off the top. It's almost kind of a depressing moment now that Kyle, I believe you're our only repeat guest to date. So that tells you how long we've been at this. We had hoped to be a little bit shorter. Hopefully it's coming to an end here pretty soon as we wind things down and gear up for hopefully some CPL action, but a little bit depressing as a reminder that you're our first repeat guest. Congratulations, I suppose.
Yeah, congratulations are in order.
For saying I'm on it. That makes me feel great, boys.
We're happy to have you, Kyle. So what has changed for you the last 45 days? Are you getting closer to giving another teammate haircut a shot, or are we still on the fence about that one?
I don't know that. I'm just going to let this thing grow. I'm in it for the long haul at this point.
The spirit we like to hear. Okay, we're going to get into a lot of talk today. We're happy to have Kyle, obviously, because we love talking to him, but also to discuss a little bit about the communication that's been going on between the Canadian Premier League and the players as we inch closer to a return to play. The CPL releasing a statement not even an hour ago discussing and mentioning the fact that they have agreed to a framework with the players. We'll get into those discussions in a little while, but first we'll start with an article that JJ Adams reported yesterday that the CPL office had meetings to explain that format to the potential concerns that players could have raised. So, Kyle, having been in those conversations with the league and just getting off a call with your team now, what has been communicated to you guys, and how's everyone feeling generally about a return to play?
Listen, I think I guess I can only speak on behalf of our team, but from a player standpoint, from Forge's point of view, it's all we want to get back. The main concerns we have is obviously just ensuring that we can be as safe as possible, following whatever parameters are in place, knowing that it's changing day to day, week to week, and all that. And if we can kind of put the best plan in place that way, guys just want to play games. We know it's obviously a very unique opportunity, and I think guys are kind of looking at it as a glass half full. And people think we can almost treat it as maybe a little tournament. It is what it is, and put your best foot forward and get in there and see what we can do.
Yeah, Kyle, that report in the province, we've heard a few possibilities in terms of the structure of the tournament. That report mentions one game against each team as kind of the regular season, if you like, and then going into some kind of knockout or playoff format. What can you tell us about those discussions and what you make of what the season could look like?
I mean, as far as I know, nothing's obviously been set in stone, and they've been willing and open to hear all kinds of different options. And I think with the rules and guidelines changing ever so often, it's tough to actually stick to one plan, because you could have a great idea one day and then the next day you wake up and it's just not feasible. But I think given the potential opportunity to go to one place, I think you have to be looking at it tournament style, potentially just play as many games as we can get in a reasonable time frame. But if you can do that, I think if guys can look at it as something like a Gold Cup or a World Cup or something like that, and the opportunities those tournaments bring for a lot of young players going into it, if we can have that mindset, I think it is what it is, and we got to just kind of accept it at that point and make the best of it.
Yeah.
Kyle, I think you saw some of the conversations earlier in the week with the PF, the Players Association, kind of speaking out and asking for a little bit more information, and then a few reports on how the communication between the league and the players needed to be a little bit better. But it seems like all that's kind of in the past now, because you have Marcel de Jong come out in the Vancouver province and kind of talk about how there's been a bit of a resolution. You have Ben Fisk quoted today in a release from the CPL talking about how it seems like the league and the players are on the same page now and happy to move forward more collaboratively. Can you just contextualize, what that relationship is like now and how that dialogue has been and if it has improved?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, they've kind of opened the doors and we've started that conversation. And as a player, I think that's all you can ask for. You just want your voice and your concerns to be heard and know that you're a part of the process as well. And that for me has happened. And we, as a club, Forge, we've been able to voice our concerns and what we would ideally like to see and all that. And there's been a dialogue. And for me, that's the most important part. And I think that provides the opportunity going forward to have that good relationship if we can all handle this positively and be respectful and listen to each other and come together to put the best situation forward.
What's the mood around the team like, Kyle? I'm guessing, as you kind of mentioned previously, everyone's raring to go at this point.
Oh, it's hilarious. Like we're hopeful for this individual training to get started, and the fact that the proposed plan of limited numbers on a field, everyone is going crazy for that. It's hilarious. Just to get back on the field and see a few of the boys, that's massive. I think that'll be a huge boost in morale and just general positivity around the group. I mean, I think I actually sent a message out to the boys the other day. I'm very happy in how we've all handled this situation. It's easy to just say kind of screw this, like I'm on my own, I'm over it. Text me when the league's back on and I'm not going to handle it. But I think we've seen it as a situation where we can grow and kind of come together, and we've bought into all the stuff on Zoom and the individual workouts and making sure that we're ready. So when the time comes that we've put in something in place, we're in the best situation possible.
Mm-hmm.
The league and the players have been very quiet on where a potential tournament, where a potential restart could be located. But we have seen local politicians even speaking out and trying to welcome the league to certain venues in Canada. We've seen, Pacific FC's home venue mentioned. Just today, Charlottetown put out a release on its city website, basically inviting the league to come to Prince Edward Island. Is all of this starting to make it feel like it's a bit more real and that, this really could happen and there could be a soccer island of sorts?
I mean, I'm hopeful for it. Definitely. I think it is moving in the right direction, and that's all we can ask for. I don't think anyone's kind of getting too excited and guaranteeing anything, because we know that the health and safety is at the forefront. And until that gets greenlit, we know the league's not going to put us in a situation where anyone's going to be compromised or anything can happen just because of what a setback that would be as players, as a league as a whole, and just how it would look across the country in terms of everyone else making all these sacrifices and living a weird life at the time. Why should we be kind of putting everyone in jeopardy of that? So it's definitely exciting, and we're hopeful, and we're kind of sitting here all wide-eyed and hoping that we can make something happen, but we'll see. It'll be interesting to see where we end up going and what opportunities there may be from it.
We've seen Ottawa and we've seen York 9 get back to training in small groups. You mentioned you guys aren't quite there yet. Any update on when you guys might be able to get back together? And when you are able to get back to the pitch, how do you mentally set yourself up for focusing on a tournament, if that is the case, versus a normal season?
Yeah, I mean, it's great that teams are getting back. Obviously, now seeing that, we're all itching for it, and we're just waiting for that final go ahead. We're hopeful for obviously something next week, but again, it's not 100%. Yeah, and we just got to take it step by step. Obviously, us going back doesn't necessarily mean the tournament's going to come back. So it's obviously still individual stuff to start. It's just get going, try not to do anything crazy so we can stay as fit and as healthy. And you kind of just got to build it back up, right? We don't want to come out of the gates going 100% and someone gets hurt because we haven't really been going 100% in this time away. So it's just being smart about it. And we're trusting our staff to put us in the best situation to kind of build all that stuff back up. So when the time comes, we are ready.
Yeah, Kyle, you mentioned this being like a kind of international tournament type format. You've played at a Gold Cup, obviously. I don't know if you've played at other tournaments at the youth level and so on, but how do they differ to, aside from the obvious, to a kind of normal club season and your approach to preparing for it?
Well, there's just a different buzz around a tournament, right? Like you
Yeah.
just go in and every game just has that heightened, I don't know, meaning to it. Everyone's a little bit more exciting. There's a lot more on the line. And I think that's awesome. Like in this bizarre situation that we find ourselves in, I think that's a very positive light. It's a whole different experience that we would never, ever have had otherwise. So it's just different. I think it allows the group to come together a lot more quickly, which is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd even be beneficial for a brand new club like Ottawa, right? Because they're kind of just thrown right into the mixer, and it's let's just see what we can kind of feed off of game by game, and you're gonna have to kind of learn on the run. But it's a condensed season, so maybe it could be a good thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that brings us to our fun segment of the day, CPL True or False. How this is going to work is I'm going to give Kurt and Ollie a true or false question. They're going to answer us and give us an explanation for their answer. And then, Kyle, I'm going to get you to add some perspective and some players' insight into each of our 8 topic points, as we go coast to coast to coast. Gentlemen, any questions on the rules, or are we good to go?
I made the rules, so it's all good.
I was going to say, as long as Kurt's not throwing in any last-minute rule changes, I'm ready.
All right, first up, true or false, York 9 has the best home field advantage in the Canadian Premier League. Kurt.
I thought about this for a little bit. People thought that it might be an advantage for York 9 to have the smaller pitch at York Lions Stadium. I actually remember coming into the season, Jimmy Brennan thought about playing a 3-back system because he thought they would stack up better defensively there and be able to throw off opponents coming in who are used to a bigger field. I don't think that turned out to be true. I thought York 9 actually played better away from home. So that's false, and it's because Halifax Wanderers have the best home field advantage. Best fans in the league for me. Nice pitch, nice grass pitch. Also only lost twice at home all of last season, I believe, not including the Canadian Championship. So long-winded answer, but it's false.
It's clearly false. Like I think York were a team, if anything, that would have benefited from open space. And you saw like Valour go there, for example, in a period where they were struggling, but because they had quite a technical team that could play in tight spaces, the pitch worked to their advantage. So I think York won 5 games at home, which wasn't a great record, and I'd have to give it to Cavalry or Forge in terms of biggest home advantage.
Kyle, I'll alter it a little bit for you. There'd be no way I'm going to get an answer from you that's not that Forge has the best home field advantage in the league. So I'll ask you this instead. What is the toughest field to go in and play? Is it York 9 because of the smaller pitch? Is it the fan supporter atmosphere like a Halifax? What's the toughest visiting venue to play in for you?
I think Halifax has a great home field. They got a great little atmosphere there. They're very successful at home. They make it tough to play. I mean, we struggled there last year, so I think from a Forge point of view, I'm going to give it to Halifax.
Moving on to true or false number 2. Cavalry FC will miss striker Dominique Malonga, who was off to Bulgaria this season. Ollie.
I kind of go 2 ways on this. I think individually he was a very good player. Obviously, his goal record spoke for itself. He had some big games for sure. But there was always just this kind of feeling that he didn't really fit their style. Cavalry was this real high intensity team, and then Malonga was like the opposite. He was, as I say, he was very skilled, very intelligent, but he didn't really ever get out of second gear. So I do think that the additions they made have the potential to maybe fit them better and give them more of that identity that they've been going for. So I'm going to say false on this one. I think they may find a better balance with the players they brought in this offseason.
I never thought I would hear Oliver Platt stand up for the hard-nosed, gritty, hard-as-nails players, but I'm glad to hear you finally give some respect to the hard-working guys, Oliver Platt. This one for me is true, and I'm going to go to a stat that Oliver Platt likes to use sometimes. Dominique Malonga should have won the Golden Boot last year. 15 expected goals. What he ended up with, 10 or 11. So he should have won the Golden Boot. He was the biggest difference maker on the best regular season team. So they're absolutely going to miss him next year. And there's no evidence that the guys they've brought in so far, who they're expecting big things out of, are going to pan out.
We know you've had a few dust ups with Dominique as two players that like to go hard for the ball and play that gritty style of game do. How much of an impact do you think he made to Cavalry? All he mentions, perhaps they're in a better position as a team without him. But when you went up against him, how much of the offense did Dominique Malonga provide, and how much of a threat was he every time he played the Cavs?
I mean, I think he's going to be someone they're going to miss for sure. I mean, we just said 10 goals. Anytime you take 10 goals out of a team, that's hard to come up with. Like, if scoring goals was so easy, we would all be scoring hat tricks every single day, and this wouldn't even be a conversation. And he had that unique ability to kind of drift out of position and have be very hard to mark, but he would show up in the box, and he was a great finisher. So he was someone you always had to pay attention against. I think he actually did fit in what they were doing just because of the balance that him and Serge kind of had and found that chemistry early on. And they kind of built off that, and it was very successful. So anytime we matched up with him, he was always someone we wanted to pay attention about and make sure we knew where he was.
Underrated part of last season was when Alexander Ancelotti Janssen almost saved his penalty.
Yeah,
that was an underrated part of last season, is how everybody forgets about like how close he was to actually saving that.
We actually give him a hard time, said he should have got a hand on it. He wanted to go in there, man. He wanted the gloves, and he went the right way. So.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that was one of the best CPL moments for me as well last season. And a great point, Kyle, as well. I mean, Malonga finished second in the Golden Boot race, just 2 goals back of Borges' 13 with 11. So they got to find some goals, but they look like they might be in a good position to do so. True or false, number 3, ex-Wanderer Mo Korouma should have a job somewhere in the CPL this upcoming season. Kurt.
Yeah, unless there's something going on behind the scenes or some kind of bizarre contract dispute that I don't know about. And if I don't know if Mo Korouma is trying to become the highest paid player in the league or something. But simple for me. I'm going to go with True, because his former teammate, Zach Secunda, came on our show last week and said that he's shocked that this guy doesn't have a job somewhere in the CPL right now. So I'm going True.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He's kind of one of those wingers that you don't really see that often nowadays, and that he's, the old-fashioned type of winger, left foot on the left wing. He kind of stays out wide. But I thought he was capable of providing some pretty good delivery off that left foot and was one of Halifax's main threats. So maybe, I think Halifax will feel they've upgraded, but certainly as an option off the bench in your squad, I'm a little surprised that he hasn't found a home.
4 goals and 4 assists in over 2,500 minutes combined last year for the Wanderers. Kyle, are you surprised to see the man without a job for now?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. He was a big part of their team. I feel like anytime we kind of matched up against him, he was exciting. He, as you just said, Oliver, he was a great winger. Like, he would drive at defenders. He wasn't shy about that. He would take them down the line. Great service of the ball. Wasn't shy to pull off from distance, and he had a great shot. So I thought he was a great player for him last year. So hopefully he can find somewhere, because I think he would be a big addition for a lot of teams.
I got to give our viewers a little bit of context. We weren't sure exactly who was going to be on the show today. We had a few different names going. So this question, we promise, isn't just put there because Kyle Becker's on the show today. Now, with that disclaimer in there, true or false, Kyle Bekker is the front runner for CPL MVP this season, or this tournament, perhaps, I should say. Ollie?
Good question.
It's got to be true. Like, if you look at the OneSoccer Top 50, which I think the league-wide everyone agrees was the definitive ranking of last season, Kyle obviously ranked second on that, and you look at the players around him, Borges, Boucher, Malonga, a lot of them have left the league. So there's undoubtedly other contenders. Bustos, Telfer's back. Some of the new guys, I'm sure, will prove themselves to be of that quality as well. But in terms of a guy who was arguably the MVP for a lot of people last year, is proven in the league and is coming back in the same team, you've got to make Kyle the favorite, right?
Yeah, it's true for me. And actually, it's going to be put to the test, hopefully soon, is that I've said on multiple shows now that I think you take Tristan Borges out of Forge FC. I still think they have the pieces there and the players to repeat as champions, but also continue to score at a high rate. I also said you take Kyle Bekker out of that team right now, I don't see anybody that's replacing that piece in their system. So for me, it's true. I hope we don't make Kyle answer this question.
I'm not going to make Kyle answer. I'm going to exclude him from being allowed to answer his own name. You can pick a teammate, pick someone else. From all the players you've faced and from the signings you've seen, who do you think is the most dangerous CPL player right now, Kyle?
I think there's a few across the league, man. And to be honest, maybe I'm biased, but I think we have a few who could have that breakout season that we saw Tristan have last year. I think there's some guys who have now seen what can happen if you gain that confidence and you score a couple goals and you kind of feed off that. So I think we have a few players. Marcel, Chris Nanko could blow up. We got Kwame. He's excellent. Johnny, if he's healthy, that's a brand new signing for us. And another new signing in Paulo this year. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's someone that not a lot of people in the league know, but we know he's going to be great for us, and he's coming in with something to prove too. So just from a forward standpoint, I think we got 3 or 4 who could step up and make a name for himself this year, which is very exciting. And you guys said a player like Marco Bustos, he's fantastic, and he's always exciting, and he's brave, and he's willing to go up people on the field and make sure something's happening. So it'll be interesting to see how he's doing in Pacific and what that young little squad is going to look like this year.
Oh, just let me get in here real quick. So you mentioned Paulo, and that's going to be part of my answer to the next question. But is he in the country yet? You haven't been in full training. What do you know about him? Can you just give us a little insight into what kind of player he is? Because for me, one of the more intriguing pieces, because you guys haven't had to add a lot. He's coming in, potentially as a replacement for a guy like Tristan Borges. So what can you tell us about him? Because it's been kind of a secret.
Yeah, I think he's just in terms of playing style, I think he's more of an out-and-out number 10 than we saw Tristan be, just because Tristan's so comfortable to kind of drift out to the wings. I think he's going to be fantastic, man. He's someone who's very comfortable on the ball. He can dribble out players, but he likes to find those pockets, the kind of the half spaces that are very hard to mark. He knows he kind of fits in our system, and he's excited about that. And he can obviously score and provide a lot of assists. So I think he's going to be someone who's going to be massive for us this year.
Do you kind of see that deeper role as your home now, Kyle? If Paolo's going to be the out and out number 10, or do you think you can both kind of play in that more advanced position?
Yeah, I think it just provides us a little bit more flexibility, right? If we want to play with 2 6s, or if we just want to keep Alex in there as an out and out number 6 and kind of 2 guys going forward, and then obviously we have Cisse coming in and out of that role too, which just provides us so much flexibility in there and just kind of keep everyone on their toes in what we're able to do. And Paulo's just very comfortable with this formation, so he can kind of drift in and out. He's comfortable getting on the ball in all places of the field.
Yes.
So
You had Cisse playing striker by the end of the year. It was wild. It was wild to see how Bobby was moving people around.
That work rate, man, you can't beat that.
Okay, true or false, number 5, Atletico Ottawa, and at last count only has 14 players signed for this season. Atletico Ottawa is the biggest mystery heading into the CPL season. Ollie?
I'm going to say false, because I think, look, I think they could be competitive, but I don't see them really contending, in the top 3 of the league. I just think they have too much to do, and obviously they've started behind everyone else. So for me, the biggest mystery would be HFX Wanderers, who, have had that year where they did finish in last place, completely overhauled their squad with the year of experience behind them and knowing a bit more about the league. And I think this is a team that, on paper could be a contender up near the top of the table, but then you also wonder how quickly it's going to kind of gel together and whether it might take a year again for them, to get up in contention with the likes of Forge and Cavalry. So for me, they could be at either end of the table and are the biggest mystery.
I disagree with that. I think as a group, you have to pick Atletico Ottawa as the biggest mystery in the league right now as a group. But is it the biggest mystery in the CPL right now? No. For me, the biggest mystery or storyline is this new batch of international signings that are coming in. And every manager seems to think that his new international signing, many of them attackers, are going to compete for the Golden Boot and be the best player in the league. At least that's what I've gotten from them after I've talked to them. So, Diaz, Jaco, Cordova. We've mentioned the new player at Forge, Paulo Sabac. That's the biggest mystery for me is can the international signings, many of which let down their clubs in 2019, be the best players on their team in 2020?
It was a trick question, by the way. The correct answer is when and where will we be playing in 2020? That is the biggest mystery in the CPL right now.
Hopefully not for long.
Kyle, I was scratching my head trying to figure out a way to bring up the Deltas because we enjoyed that conversation so much last year. But here's my segue, professional segue. You joined an expansion team that came together, won the championship in 2017. We obviously hope that Atletico Ottawa doesn't fold 17 days later. But in your experience, how does an expansion team gel together and find success in their first year?
I don't know if there's any real rhyme or reason to it. Our success was very much based around Mark Dos Santos and his ability to bring us all in and get across his message very early. So we knew what our goal was as a team. I think a benefit we had was the way him and Todd Donovan put the team together and just experienced players, guys who it wasn't necessarily their first year. I think we might have only had 1 or 2 players on the roster who had never played a professional season before. And I think even one of them might have had a year somewhere in Europe before that. So it was kind of guys who knew what we were getting into, knew the opportunity, what it was, and we just had trust in Mark. And that was all just the way he communicated to us very early on. And he was very open and very honest about what he wanted to see from us and what he wanted us to kind of achieve on the field and what we were capable of. So I think a lot of it just comes down to the leadership of the staff and then the leadership of the group you have of the players.
Very well said. True or false? Number 7, FC Edmonton should be this year's sleeper pick to win the whole thing. Ollie.
Yeah, I'll say true on that one. Would I say that, they're in my top 3 right now? No. But I do think they've improved. And I think people have given, Pacific quite a lot of credit this offseason and picked them as a little bit of a dark horse. And to me, FC Edmonton aren't very far behind them, if they are behind them at all, and haven't got nearly the same amount of attention and credit for the work they've done. So yeah, I'll say true on that one.
I'm going to say false. I look at FC Edmonton's roster, and I know Oliver likes a lot of the guys they've added. A lot of people across the league like the Swedish midfielder Zetterberg that they've added. But I'm going with Halifax Wanderers as the sleeper pick, just because I know the turnover has been immense. But I think a lot of the guys they've brought in are not they're not question marks, really, right? They have experience. They've played at the USL level and they've played in Gold Cups. So I think the recruitment in Halifax makes them a sleeper pick. Do I think they're going to win a title? No. But if there was going to be a surprise, I'm going to go with Halifax.
Understanding that the respect for opponents is consistent across the board, Kyle, but outside of Forge, Cavalry, and York 9, who are you most concerned about in the remaining 5 clubs?
Well, I think Pacific is going to be exciting to watch. I think we've had some eyes on them just in this time off, just as much scouting as possible as we can do with limited games. But knowing that they have players who are kind of making changes and stuff we can see. So they're going to be very exciting. I think if their new coach can kind of get them all together on the same page, they're going to be able to build off a lot of the success they had last year. Shore up that defense a little bit with Marcel coming back. That's a massive piece with all that experience that he brings to the table. I think that was something they were missing throughout the season. But again, yeah, Halifax is off opponent. We always, for whatever reason, they matched up with us very well. So I think anytime we play them this year, we kind of want to get them back for last year's results.
All right, moving on. Pacific FC. This kind of goes back to the things that you and Ollie were just mentioning, Kurt. But yeah. Pacific FC, the most improved club heading into 2020. True or false?
Nope, false. Halifax Wanderers. Book it. Simple. I already gave the answer. I just gave the answer right before this. So.
Yeah, I think Halifax have the potential to be the most improved. If you're looking at, kind of the higher floor, I guess, Pacific have brought in a lot of guys that are pretty proven and you kind of know what you're going to get from them. Bustos obviously is one. The Fury guys that have come in as well. I think they're going to be pretty reliably going to be good players in this league.
Yeah, but you're also counting on their young players no longer being young players. You want their young players to be better than they were in season 1. That has to happen.
It does. But I think there's, you can ask all sorts of questions about Halifax as well, right? They've got players coming in from abroad, players coming in from a youth sports level. So there's question marks with all the teams. I think Pacific are the safest bet to be, significantly better than they were last year.
Kyle, one final word from you. Hard to improve on a championship season, but where has Forge improved the most this offseason?
I think just our overall message and how we need to be a lot more consistent. We can't take anything for granted. We saw that in very early on in the season. Obviously, we were excited with the preseason we had, and we felt good about going into the league. And we kind of got punched right in the mouth pretty early. So we know that if we don't do our job, it's going to be very difficult. And obviously now with a target on our back, being a champion and all that comes with that, everyone's going to want to kind of knock us off every single game we play. So we know we got to bring our best and be that much more consistent and do all the little stuff every single day to ensure when that game comes, we're kind of firing and we come out and just be a little bit more clinical. I think that's the biggest thing. We felt we could have put games away very early last year, and when we didn't, you obviously allow the other team to kind of feel that they're still in the game, and you always give them an opportunity. And if we can do that a little bit more, then we hope we can put the games to bed a little earlier.
Scared to think that the champs could be getting even better. Kurt, Ollie, before we go, I need a quick one for you. I just realized that I forgot Valour. I skipped them in the list. We can't forget Valour. Who will they miss more? Sorry, the true or false is they will miss Bustos more than Petrasso. We need a quick one from you, Ollie, first.
True. Not making a judgment on who's the better player, but obviously Petrasso had some injury issues and Bustos was the guy who was carrying them a lot of the time last year. So true for me.
Yeah, true for me as well.
Perfect. Kyle, thank you very much for the time today, buddy. We appreciate you coming back on again and now wearing the crown of the most frequented Hangout guest. We appreciate it. Stay healthy, stay safe. We look forward to seeing you on the field.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man.
For everyone else, have a fantastic weekend. Follow at OneSoccer on all the social media platforms. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, give it a big thumbs up, and share it with a friend. Enjoy your Saturdays and Sundays off. And we'll talk to you on Monday.